What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for July 6, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Saturday edition of the podcast. Going to be a hot one today again, but your Phillies are heating up as well. Trea Turner has really stepped in nicely with Schwarber and Harper being out. Went to hit two-run homers last night. And that was the difference in the game as the Phillies beat the Braves 8-6. They're now 10 games up. Made it a little interesting there in the eighth when Alvarado gave up the 3-run shot to Ozuna. But the Phils hung on and now have a 10-game lead with Ranger Suarez going on the mound today. Aaron Nola was solid, got his 100th win of his career. Of course, he gave up a couple homers because I feel like that's what Nola does against the Braves. Still a little concerning with the runners in scoring position. They went 2 for 11 yesterday, but I think a lot of that has to do with those guys being out. So as long as they keep winning, I'm okay with it. But that's one of those things I want to keep an eye on. I don't know if that means they're going to look for a bat at the trade deadline or what, but just a good win down in Atlanta. They took advantage of mistakes the Braves were making and were able to capitalize and pounded out 15 hits. So they're getting the hits. They just can't get the runners in. But they still managed, thanks to Trea Turner, to put up an 8 spot on the Braves. They're the national TV game today. Ranger Suarez is on the mound. Hopefully he can bounce back. And we had a discussion about this a little bit yesterday. And I know a lot of people were like, oh, well, you're not going to miss much with JT being out, this, that, and the other. But it does seem like the pitchers have been a little bit uncomfortable. Part of it probably is it's close to the All-Star break. They're ready for a rest. But JT is just a stud. So hopefully him and Bryce are running around 70%, 75%, they said. So they should be back soon. I know Tuesday is when Schwarber and Harper are both eligible to be called back or taken off the injured list. I think Schwarber will probably be back. If Bryce has any chance, I'm sure he's going to try to push it. And at this point, JT is ready whenever he can be called off whenever he's ready. So good news for the Phils. They just keep extending that lead with those guys out, and then you get them back. It's almost like bonus All-Star or trade deadline pickups. So looking to win that series today against the Braves, even up their series. I think the season series, this would even it up at 3 games apiece because I think the Braves took 2 out of 3 earlier in the season. But looking forward to this game, it's going to be hot. Might just stay inside in the air conditioner where it's safe and watch it. But Phil's Braves today at 4. I've been telling you about the John Kruk is My Spirit Animal shirt from Philly Goat. 10% of the proceeds benefit the Battle Brothers Foundation, they do great things for our veterans. So pick up that shirt, and while you're there, I have a toxic relationship with Philly sports because we all do. It's in our DNA. It's what we do. So go to phillygoat.com. If you're a new listener, go to their site. Check out all of their selection. They have a ton. Be sure to just keep scrolling and hit more because a lot of the older shirts are great too. So go to phillygoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery. That helps the podcast out, and you'll get 10% off as well. But pick up the Kruk is My Spirit Animal shirt, and 10% of your sales go to the Battle Brothers Foundation. But like I said, if you are new, check out the just everything they have on the site and the shoes. I can't stress this enough. Go check out the shoes. I've been wearing, between the Cape Mays and the Schmitties, I've been wearing them all weekend. Well, not all weekend, all week, and getting a ton of compliments. They're so comfortable. So go to phillygoat.com, use the promo code Jim Montgomery, 10% off of your order, and you won't be disappointed. Union back in action tonight down in Chester against the New York Red Bulls. Should be interesting to see how restless this crowd gets. There's a lot of rumblings and a lot of unhappiness. I know some of the fans want the ownership group to sell the team. They have not won a game at home since March. So the Union have certainly fallen on very, very hard times. But they look to bounce back and finally get a win. It seems like forever since they got a win today down in Chester against the Red Bulls. Other than that, it's been a quiet week in Philly sports. Not much with the Sixers. Things have sort of calmed down. Summer League kicks off next week, so we'll kind of watch and see how the new guys do out in. I think there's like 3. Like, I didn't understand how it was. I don't know if they do like a tour, but I think they have some games in California. Then they go to Salt Lake City, and then they have the big one that you'll see in Vegas. But certainly looking forward to see what the young guys have for that, and we'll have more on that next week once they get started. All right, today we're going to go back to 2009 and stick with the Phillies. And on this day in 2009, the Phillies beat the Reds 22-1 down at Citizens Bank Park. Jumped on them early, scoring 10 runs in the first. Johnny Cueto didn't even make it out of the first inning before he was pulled after going 2/3 of an inning. Victorino, Dobbs, and Utley all had homers in the first inning, and that was more than enough for Cole Hamels, who went 7 innings, had 3 hits, 1 run, and 2 strikeouts. Jason Worth followed it up with a grand slam in the 8th. J-Roll, Eric Bruntlett, Greg Dobbs, Cole Hamels all had doubles, and Hamels helped himself a lot at the plate this day. Went 2 for 4, had 2 RBI. Jason Worth had 5 RBI. Chase Utley had 4 RBI. Everybody was getting in, but the star of the game was Shane Victorino. He went 4 for 5, had a homer, 2 doubles, 4 RBI, scored 5 runs, which tied a Phillies team record. This game it's still to this day the largest margin of victory the Phillies have had in their history, 21 runs. The 10 runs in the first inning tied the team record. I believe it tied that game in, I think it was 85 when Von Hayes hit 2 home runs in the first inning. It also happened to be the worst loss in the Reds' history of their franchise, and we all know how 2000 turned out. That was a fun year. Phils went back to the World Series, didn't beat the Yankees, some untimely errors, and I still say that stupid home run by A-Rod that hit off the camera that was in the field of play. It was BS, but was not meant to be. Hopefully they can atone for that this year. But on this day in 2009, Phils beat the Reds 22-1 at Citizens Bank Park, their largest victory in team history. Tied the record for runs in the first inning with 10, gave the Reds their worst loss in history, and Shane Victorino had scored 5 runs, which tied the team record, all in that 22-1 win over the Reds. I do remember this game too. It was a fun game to watch. It was just batting practice pretty much. All right, let's go to the Ultimate Philly Sports Nickname Tournament, and lots of things to get to today with this. First, I had some people questioning the seeding of our first matchup out of the Balboa region, the Flying Hawaiian versus Whitey, and keep in mind that this is based strictly on nickname. It's not the product on the field, because had it been based on their play, obviously Richie Ashburn would have been higher than Shane Victorino, but that's just sort of the way the things went. I personally feel that the Flying Hawaiian is such a great nickname, and I told you yesterday that to me, he's like I hear that name and I think him just flying on with at the end of the World Series game, and I just feel like you can visualize the nickname. That's why it's ranked so high. But thank you for the feedback on that. I do appreciate it. Everybody has their opinion, and I do think Whitey is just, it's a cool name, and I think there's a lot of nostalgia and attachment to that. So I think that's why people were questioning the seeding of that. But it was all for naught, as the Flying Hawaiian, Shane Victorino, dominated Whitey, winning 80% of your vote. So Shane Victorino, the Flying Hawaiian, is moving on in our Balboa region. And quick side note that has nothing to do with the nickname tournament, since this was a Balboa region matchup, wish a happy 78th birthday to Sylvester Stallone today, Rocky himself. So just thought I'd throw that little tidbit in there. And then in our other matchup out of the Schuylkill region, had a great day today, or a great day on this day in 2009, and had a great day yesterday, winning his Schuylkill region matchup against Bundy. Hollywood Cole Hamels, 69% of the vote to move on out of the Schuylkill region. 2 big matchups today, a lot of heavy hitters, literally. We'll start with the Cheesesteak region. And our number 2 seed, the Legion of Doom, takes on the number 15 seed, Pat the Bat. And I can already hear it now. Pat the Bat is seeded too low, but I don't think so. It's just a 2-year-old could have come up with that nickname. But more on that in a minute. Let's start with the Legion of Doom. Eric Lindros, John LeClaire, and Mikael Renberg. That line was just so dominant for a 3-year stretch between 95 and 97. Scored 305 goals, 361 assists during the regular season, and they were great in the playoffs as well. 56 goals, 74 assists. They went to the 97 Cup final, but unfortunately could not get it done. They were shut down, and Scotty Bowman decided to counteract that and put like a quick finesse line to go up against them and kind of neutralize what they were able to do. But the Legion of Doom line were Flyers fan favorites. Jim Montgomery, not me, Jim Montgomery, the hockey player, is the one who gave them the name because of just how dominant they were both offensively and defensively. And to me, it's a play on the Road Warriors from the old school WCW and WWF days. But all 3 of these guys were at least 6'2" and weighed 230. So they were just big. They were fast. They could score. They could hit you. So that's where the name the Legion of Doom came from. Jim Montgomery, no relation. Not me, but he's the one that gave them the name. And then Gene Hart helped to get it popularized. He started using it, and it just caught on. But the Legion of Doom line, Eric Lindros, John LeClaire, Mikael Renberg, is our number 2 seed out of the Cheesesteak region. And to me, I love this nickname a lot. Almost, had they won a cup, they may have been the number 1 seed over the Broad Street Bullies. But because of the cups, that's why the Broad Street Bullies were the 1 seed. But Legion of Doom is right there. Just sounds intimidating. Like you're playing the Legion of Doom line, you're gonna feel it. They are taking on Pat the Bat. Pat Burrell was the number 1 overall pick with the Phillies in 1998 out of Miami. And if you remember, that was right around the same time. The year before, I think, is when J.D. Drew and J.D. Drew's like, I'm not playing for them. Pat Burrell's like, I'll go to Philly. And certainly made a name for himself. He's a Phillies Wall of Famer. Spent 9 years here. Career 257 hitter, 251 homers, which is number 4 all time for the Phillies. Added 827 RBI. And the one thing I'll always remember about Pat Burrell was he was very similar to almost not quite, or probably a little bit more inconsistent, but Rhys Hoskins-esque, where like when Pat Burrell was hot, there was nobody better than him. It's just unfortunate because when he was cold, especially near the end of his career in Philly, he just was terrible. He couldn't do anything. However, he will always be remembered for me for getting the big hit in Game 5, the second half of Game 5 of the World Series. He hit that double that hit off the top of the center field wall that I thought if that would have been the perfect end to his Phillies career if he hit that. As it stands, he still got the double, was pinch run for, and then never played again for the Phillies. But I think everybody knew because in the parade, he was the guy that led it with his dog Elvis on the Budweiser Clydesdale. What is that? The cart or whatever, the wagon, I guess is what it's called. But the origin of his nickname, ironically enough, is not what you think. Obviously, you think Pat the Bat. That means, okay, he is a good hitter, this, that. Has nothing to do with his hitting. And contrary to what some people out there might think, has nothing to do with his post-game escapades down at the Irish pub on Walnut Street. He got the name when he was at Miami from Alex Cora. Yes, that Alex Cora. They called him the Bat because he didn't sleep at night. Never knew that, and I think that makes the name even that much cooler. But obviously it does fit with the way he played the game and things like that. It had nothing to do with his escapades at the Irish pub. So we'll kind of just let that go. But our Cheesesteak region matchup for today is the Legion of Doom versus Pat the Bat. Who do you got? Which is a better Philly sports nickname? Get your votes in. You can call or text me on the Back to the Future voice and text line, 267-495-8531. That'll get you in. Get anything else Philly sports related off your chest. Want to talk Phillies Braves? Want to talk NBA Summer League? Flyers, what they should or should not do. If you're a Union person and you want to weigh in on what the team should do and what's wrong with the team, you can get that out too. It's been very quiet on the Eagles front, which I think is good. We need that going into training camp. You can also hit me up on the social media, Jimbo_Mott, Twitter and TikTok, at Philly Jimbo on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, text me, whatever you got to do, get those votes in. We keep setting records every day with the votes, so continue as you're at barbecues and parties today even. Get the word out there. Spread the word about the podcast. Let's help grow this thing. And we're getting there. And be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mott. That's a huge help for growing the podcast. All right. Then out of the Ben Franklin region, our next matchup, the number 3, the Big Piece, takes on the number 14 seed, Bruiser, Flint. Let's start with the Big Piece. Ryan Howard, 5th round draft pick of the Phillies in 2001. Quickly moved his way up through the minors and was dominating minor league pitching. Unfortunately, he was stuck behind Jim Thome, and then Jim Thome went down with an injury, and that was all Ryan Howard needed. Got hot and just had probably one of the most historic 5-year stretches of Babe Ruth-esque numbers there. For I think a lot of people forget about that he was on a Babe Ruth type pace there for 5 years before the Achilles injury. He's a 3-time All-Star, Rookie of the Year, NLCS MVP in 2009, League MVP in 2006, won the Home Run Derby. I believe in 2006 is when he won that. 2-time home run leader in the National League, 3-time RBI leader. Played 13 years in Philly altogether, and which I never realized or thought about how long he played. But if you remember, after the contract that Ruben gave him, he just was never the same after that Achilles injury. But hit 382 home runs, which is number 2 all-time on the Phillies list behind Mike Schmidt. Almost 1,200 RBI. And I think what oftentimes gets forgotten about Ryan Howard, because our lasting memory of him is the end of his career, was the fact that he was clutch. He had so many clutch hits, especially in the postseason, and everybody talks about the strikeouts and things like that, but he was very, very clutch. Remember the game in Colorado when he was just get me to the plate, boys, and it came through, and just so many bombs. One of my favorite players. I think he's probably one of the most, if not the most, certainly top 3 most underrated Philly athletes of all time. And I do think he's definitely an underappreciated athlete. I put him and Donovan are the top 2 most underappreciated athletes ever in Philly. The origin of the Big Piece, he got the name from Charlie Manuel. Obviously, it fits because of his size and everything like that. But it was just because of how he fit in with the team. He was a team-first guy, which Charlie Manuel was big on that. Always thought about the team first, but did whatever he had to do to win. And Charlie Manuel is the one that gave him the Big Piece. And I think it's one of my favorite nicknames in Philly sports history. And I just keep thinking, though, if he would have came up earlier, if he wasn't stuck behind Thome, he easily would have hit 500 home runs. Definitely the Achilles injury certainly hampered him. And if you think about it now with the new rules with the shift, he was one of the first guys that everybody shifted on. He probably would have had better numbers because his average would have been higher. So Ryan Howard, the Big Piece, is our number 3 seed in the Ben Franklin region. He's taking on Bruiser Flint. James Flint was a Philadelphia native, played at St. Joe's, was okay, wasn't great or anything, and then got into coaching. He coached at UMass. He coached at Drexel. He's a 4-time CAA Coach of the Year. All total, he has 331 wins as an NCAA coach. He's currently an assistant out in Arkansas. And the origin of his nickname, when he came from his grandfather. When he was a kid, he spent 6 weeks in the hospital with an intestinal disease. His parents were concerned, and his grandfather said, "Don't worry, he's going to grow up to be a bruiser." And the name stuck. His dad ended up being his rec coach when he was playing basketball, and to play for his dad. His dad was tough on him. He had to be a Bruiser, so the name fit. But Bruiser Flint is our 14 seed. And I have to say, Bruiser Flint was one of my favorite coaches when he was at UMass to just heckle, because we always sat right next to the visitor bench. So he always was out, and like he was one of those coaches that was like on the court when he were coaching. So we'd always just go, Bruiser, and I'm like, get on the sideline, get back to the bench. And he always acknowledged it. He had fun with it, but it was one of my favorite coaches to heckle. But now it's your turn. What is the better Philly sports nickname, the Big Piece or Bruiser? And then in the Cheesesteak region, we have the Legion of Doom versus Pat the Bat. Call me, text me on the Back to the Future voice and text line 267-495-8531. Let me know the best Philly sports nickname. Legion of Doom taking on Pat the Bat, and then the Big Piece taking on Bruiser Flint. One of the better coaches in Philly history from a college perspective, but always one of my favorites to just mess with and heckle. On this day in 2009, Phils beat the Reds 22-1, their largest margin of victory in team history. Would love to see something similar today down in Atlanta. I'm not predicting it, but I would love to see it. But that happened on this day in 2009. Like I said, Phils, I want to see Ranger Suarez come out and just dominate. He always seems to pitch well against the Braves. So I think if you're betting, I like the Phillies again on the money line today. Hard to tell. Like, this could very easily go under, but I could see the offense and Trea Turner continuing to stay hot. Staying away from that, but I am betting the Phillies money line today. If you want to put a little action on the game, make it a little bit more interesting. We'll have more on that game tomorrow. Hopefully some updates on the Sixers Summer League. And I will try to get a better understanding on how it works. Like, I don't know if they're 3 separate leagues or if they just take the combined record. But I'll look on that. And if you know, call me on the Back to the Future voice and text line. Be sure to get your votes in for our nickname tournament, the Legion of Doom versus Pat the Bat, and the Big Piece versus Bruiser Flint. And let me know which is the best Philly sports nickname for today's matchups. Be safe out there. Again, still people doing fireworks. Don't blow off your hand. Don't pull a Jason Pierre-Paul. Be safe. Stay hydrated. Call an Uber if you have to, but go out and enjoy it. Go Phillies. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for July 6, 2024. I'm Jim Montgomery, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.